A very good morning and many thanks for joining us again on our Gate Television and our Gate Radio. It is another beautiful Tuesday morning and my name is Fanan Kwal and welcoming you to newspaper headlines review. And I also have with me Chido Kaka. Good morning, Chido.
Good morning, Fanan. It's good to be back.
So how's the weather with you?
Cool, beautiful.
Also with us in the studio is our usual analyst, seasoned journalist, TV Akase. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Fanan, and I'm happy to be here again.
All right, beautiful stories for us in the national dailies. We're starting with the first paper, which is Punch. And Punch comes with a very public interest story. This is NNPCL under fire as $897 million Warri refinery revamp flaps. I want to explain that headline so that it's clear. NNPCL under fire as $897 million Warri refinery revamp fails. That flops means fails. Okay. Then above the nameplate we have Papa elections guided by Holy Spirit, not politics. And this is coming from an archbishop. Diaspora voting. INEC pushes for constitutional amendment. We have Hurricane Tinubu. More governors will join APC. Ganduje boasts. And then we have massive power outage grants trends internet in Spain, Portugal, France. So it's not only Nigeria. Obedience tackles Sanwo-Olu over attack on Peter Obi. Gender advocates hail death sentence for late Osinachi's husband. Alleged fraud, court orders businesswoman at Chimugu's appearance. Beautiful stories. Yeah, of course, we're starting with the banner headline: NNPCL under fire as $897 million Warri refinery revamp flaps. Warri refinery shut down, drags on since January 25. Port Harcourt refinery struggles at under 40% production capacity. You know, Shido, one of the things that made us happy, at the beginning of this administration, first of all, it was at the beginning of Dangote operations there. And then shortly after, the federal government told us that there was going to be a revamp of the Warri refinery, Port Harcourt refinery, and I think a refinery also in Kaduna. Then we were happy because we felt that at the end of these projects, when they start work, the commodity is going to be, first of all, surplus.
That's right, available.
And then there will also be competition, thereby driving down the price.
Cost, yeah.
But then Port Harcourt refinery is still suffering at 40% completion, not even 50%. And then we're also having the failure of the Warri refinery. And there's so much. $897 million being invested in. That's billions and billions of naira.
No, it's more than billion.
Okay.
That's approximately. Like if you look at it from say 1,500 naira, and you convert that to dollars, you will have approximately 1,345. That's 1.3 trillion.
Right.
It's huge. Now, this country has sunk such an amount in a project, and that project is yet to come on stream. That project has not seen the light of day. It has not been revamped. So, who are we fooling in this country? The other time I saw the immediate past, head of the NNPCL, Carey, did a media show taking journalists around the Warri refinery and boasting that, we told you that we'll be back and that we're back. This refinery is working. But today, the story is different. So, we just have to be sincere in this country. Imagine such an amount going into a project. This refinery and others have been comatose for decades. And now that the federal government has shown the desire, the political will to revamp it, we expected that there will be less corruption in the system, and the country's refineries will come back to full production, or at least 70% production. And now we're hearing that even the Port Harcourt refinery, which was in the media, there was this razzmatazz about it, that, oh, the refinery is back and it's producing. We only have 40% of it. So I think something is wrong. And I expect Mr. President to wield the big hammer. And if people who are behind this fleas are found to be culpable, they should be dealt with. You can't invest 1.3 trillion in a national project, and Nigerians have not seen the benefits of that project. So someone needs to explain. It is not enough to let the head of such an agency go. It is not enough to sack mainly Carey. It is not enough to lay off some directors or something. People should be held responsible. There should be restitution. That's the only way that we begin to get to a stage where corruption will minimize in this country. That's my take on it. It's so unfortunate that Nigeria, which is the giant of Africa, one of the biggest oil producers in the world, is grappling with oil production. Its refineries are down for many years. So sad.
All right, 2 words for me there. First of all, it is not enough just to let the directors or the head of the agency just go like that. People should be prosecuted. People should be held accountable, and there should be restitution.
Right.
I love that word restitution particularly, because if you chop our money, return it. All right. So let's also. Do you have anything there?
No.
Okay. So let's also push to another direction, which is diaspora voting, which INEC has been pushing. We discussed that.
Yeah, we started
part
that.
Of what we said is that even within the country, we have not been able to capture
everyone.
But now they are pushing for a constitutional amendment to tilt towards that direction. Well, shouldn't the constitutional amendment also focus on our villagers?
And strengthening our reforms, the electoral
reforms, yeah, within the country.
There is nothing wrong with making Nigerians, enabling Nigerians who are living abroad to also vote, to also have a say, to participate in who becomes the leader of this country. There's nothing wrong with that. But like we said here the other time, it appears to me that someone is about to cash out so big in this project.
Indeed.
And it may be somewhere in the high places, who knows. That's why you find the push, it has now become an issue that INEC and other stakeholders are more interested in making Nigerians who live abroad to vote. Beautiful. But what are we doing to strengthen our voting system, our voting system, our electoral system at home? Yesterday I read a story that there may be, INEC is also asking that there should be the PVC, permanent voter card, should be eradicated. Which means if that happens in future elections, you just walk to a polling booth, a polling unit, and the poll officers take your biometrics, confirm your biometrics, and you are allowed to vote. That's another thing that they are pushing. And I also read some anxieties, some apprehensions. Some people are feeling that, someone somewhere wants to manipulate the system in 2027. So that's why they are trying to take away the PVC. But of course, the argument that PVC production also takes a lot of money is also true.
The collection process is also
cumbersome. And then the
cumbersome.
collection, Nigerians, after they have gone to do their voter registration. To go back and pick the PVCs becomes another issue. So that is another very strong argument. But you see, our system is always, I mean, what we saw in the last election was a strong reminder that we're not there yet. So if you take away the PVC now, which our people have come to be used to, then you have to really strengthen the process in a way that people will not just be brought to the polling units and they are hastily accredited and they're asked to go and vote. So I think the National Assembly should properly look into that proposal, and if it will work for Nigeria, beautiful. If it will not work, then why push for it? Why not find a way that the PVC system is made easier and better? Instead of going for, yes, biometric, taking biometrics is beautiful, but PVC also does it. That's what it's done. When you bring your PVC, they use it to confirm that you are actually the holder. Those who are asking that the PVC should be set aside are saying that because even dead people voted in previous elections, that some people who are no longer living, their PVCs were brought to polling units, accredited, and other people were asked to go and vote. That's the argument. So whichever way it's going to go, my take would be that the electoral system should be made in a way that rigging becomes very difficult going forward, and that should begin from 2027. And INEC should strengthen their equipment, their systems, in such a way that we will not experience another glitch like it happened in 2023 during the presidential coalition, the presidential election coalition, because that glitch really made some Nigerians very disappointed. And so I think this INEC chairman will be going, I think, in September or October of this year, and perhaps he wants to leave a legacy. That's why he's making some of these suggestions that the electoral system should be strengthened, which is beautiful, by the way.
Okay, I think beyond the suggestions to leave a legacy, there should be the political will, because to me, I'm looking at it that even if the PVCs are eliminated or set aside, it even becomes more easy to even manipulate the system.
Exactly.
Because there's nothing to show for it. Anybody can just go, whether you are accredited or not, but you head forth and vote, because you have nothing to show.
Well, the argument is that you come in person, and the polling officers, the electoral officers, take your biometrics. Of course, they usually have that machine,
yes,
called Beavers.
Beavers, yeah.
And so maybe you go there, they take a picture of you, and then confirm that it's actually the face that they are seeing here that is on their system.
Well, between where you are verified and where you are voting, so a lot of things can happen.
I don't know how that is going to happen, but
exactly.
These systems have been practiced, have been operated elsewhere. So if Nigeria wants to adopt best practices, my take is that the practices should also, in the operational angle, the operational mode of it, the practices should also be utilized the way they are done in even other African countries like Kenya, Ghana, and so on. But when we adopt systems here, we only adopt the euphoria that accompanies such systems. We don't go into the nitty-gritties of the operations of that system. When PVCs came, was it 2015? The euphoria was there. Everybody was happy that at last Nigeria had got it right and that there will be no more rigging of elections. But as Nigeria receives a new system, the bad guys are also thinking about how to compromise that system. So it is up to us as institutions, as those who man institutions, as those who manage. Our ladies will say you shouldn't use man. Those who manage institutions should remember that what it means is that the institution has to be strong. In Nigeria, we have strong personalities. We have strong individuals, but we have weak institutions. So in making institutions strong, that is when and the only way democracy can become what we want it to be. And I have said here before that corruption can be minimized in Nigeria if the electoral system is strengthened. If we get our electoral system to be strong and better, people who are elected, we know that if we do not do well, we'll be voted out in the next round of elections. So it is good that we take some of these measures, but the operation of such systems is what matters.
All right, so we would like to end the Punch newspaper on a sad note. Gender advocates hail death sentence for late Osinachi's husband. Shido, this issue started, I think, was it 2023, 2024?
Yeah.
2023, I think. And then the verdict has been passed at last.
And there are so many arguments in that situation, because some people are wondering, so now what happens to the kids? If you take away, the mother is already gone, so we've taken away the father as well. Somebody actually suggested that why not keep him in prison and let the children keep visiting him? But what's bad is bad, right?
I think the man's case was made worse by his children. Two of them actually testified against him. They bore witnesses against him. And so you can see that the children have made up their mind that this man does not deserve them as a father. Because the court has found the prosecution witness, the evidence brought by the prosecution team was overwhelming.
That's right.
And that included the witness of the children. So I think the children are ready. They are prepared that the man doesn't deserve them. And so whatever happens to him, let it happen.
All right, so one of the most important things we must do is for us who are the outsiders, who are not involved directly, but it should serve as a lesson for us, so that if you have intentions or you have been engaging in this kind of practices, I think it's a time to
change,
withdraw.
Change your ways.
Retrace your step. I remember Chief had said here that gender-based violence of whatsoever kind, whether it's the man against the woman or the woman against the man, is condemnable. And the Nigerians must rise up to ensure that we put a stop to this.
And of course, the advice to, people who are going through things like this, it's okay to speak out. It's okay to talk about it.
Keeping silence is not the best.
Not the best
when
at
you
all.
are going through domestic violence or whatever kind, whether it is the woman that is on the receiving end or the man, because there are some women who are actually the aggressors in their homes. So, but the women we usually have the sympathy of the larger society. So, whatever happens in the home, whether it's the woman that is on the receiving end, or the man, speak out. Let people hear your story, and if intervention can be made, it will be made in time to save lives.
All right, I think we've said enough there, and it's about time we take a short break, and then when we are back, we'll look at more stories. But just then, let me remind you that we are live on Facebook, Agate TV 1. And on YouTube, we are Agate Television. www.agateradiotv.com is where you can listen to the live broadcast, be it on radio or on television, because we are doing a simulcast. And our paper is also there for you to read. Welcome back to our newspaper headlines review on Agate Radio and Television. And I hand over to Shido to take us through the next paper.
That will be the Guardian newspaper this morning, and the banner headline, Institutional Fees at 51 universities, others embroiled in illegal deductions from student loans, extra charges institutions make on each NELFund applicant. I know Fana is already laughing, and of course our analysts would love this one. Dig deep, but we'll get to that. Other top stories in The Guardian this morning: alleged $1 billion fraud, suspected CBEX promoter surrenders to EFCC. Ohanaeze urges Tinubu to accept peace move by pro-Biafra agitators. Still in The Guardian this morning, we have JAM, Peter Obi, Bika over early exam schedules. And The Guardian also reports that 2027, INEC seeks law to strip president of power to appoint Rex. And that's resident electoral commissioners. And then Rufai Lukman maintain opposition as APC receives Obarewori Okowa. And court orders Aisha Achimogo to honor EFCC's invitation. Customs receives 6 cargo scanners, target 67 in 20 years. But let's go to the banner headline, institutional fees. 51 universities, that's universities, others embroiled in illegal deductions from students' loans. Extra charges institutions make on each NELFund applicant. So some institutions are making as high as 30,000 naira on each applicant.
My question is, during the time of payback, would they also assist the students in paying back the loan they are deducting from?
Right.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Very good question. You see, we've spoken about the stench of corruption in this country. And if the citadels of knowledge, the ivory towers, who should be the example, are leading from the front in terms of corruption. So where is the country? Where is the country headed? If any institution is to be corrupt in this country, the institution of learning, the institution of knowledge should not be part of corruption. And if our universities are found to be engrossed in corruption, deducting or rather charging students, poor students. I remember when I went to school, things were difficult. And many Nigerians are going through the same thing because we live a communal life. Those who are rich are in a minority. Poor Nigerians are in the majority. So you go to every state, you find the same situation. People are barely living, managing from hand to mouth. Now, the federal government has introduced a wonderful initiative of helping students to be able to acquire education through loans. And here the universities, not all of them, and we have to be specific, it's not every university that is into this. There are many universities who are not doing this. The report says 51.
51.
51 of them, and that's a big number.
It is.
Federal universities are higher in number. I've seen some state universities as well. Happily, our own here is not part of it. So, if this is happening, then it's quite unfortunate. And I expect our universities, university authorities in Nigeria, to have pity on poor Nigerians, to have pity on indigent students of this country who are barely managing to school. Some students go to the university with just 1 or 2 trousers and maybe 1 or 2 shirts. It's not a joke. So such a student has got a leeway, has got reprieve from the federal government through the loan, and you are charging that highly. When the student finishes school and begins to work, he's expected to pay back this loan. Now you have added your charge. I expected universities to also support the federal government by even contributing a little to that, because it's a good initiative. And for them to be adding the charge, it's really condemnable. And I just hope that the federal government will wield the big stick and demand that universities should withdraw those extra charges they are making from the students over those loans. And if any university fails to do it, the federal government should find a way of giving this money directly to the students through their banks.
Right.
If possible. Why not? If you route the loan through the banks, maybe these microfinance banks, and make the student to go into that agreement, perhaps those charges from universities will no longer be there. But of course, banks too will have their charges. But if the government goes into subsidy with the banks and says, okay, you do not charge the students, we pay whatever charge that student is supposed to pay, that will make it easier. So I think Nigerians should rise to condemn this practice. It's really sad.
Okay, so the news also says that some universities have confirmed these deductions and have said they have pledged to refund this money back to the students.
Better.
So in the first place, they knew this was wrong, but they still did it. That brings me back to the point where we talked earlier about holding people accountable, not just letting things go. Should we begin to also look at that in this regard?
Yes, because that money that is being charged extra, you'll be surprised that the money will not be going into the university coffers, the university income, or treasury, if you like. So someone may be somewhere taking that money. Maybe one or two persons will be responsible and taking that money and diverting it into their private pockets. Because if you say that is part of the university's revenue, why are you making it outrageous? Why are you taking that high? It should be minimal. If you are saying, okay, for handling charges, that this
Yeah.
that is usually used.
Right.
Handling charges, okay, it sounds so hazy, but it's true. It has come to stay in Nigerian systems. Handling charges. Fine. If you say handling charges, why not make it maybe 500 naira or 1,000 at most? If you calculate that amount and look
By
at the number of students that are going to pay you 1,000,
It's going to be
it's
something.
going to be some big money. What do you take 10,000, 15,000,
30,000.
30,000? That's corruption. That's corruption. And there's no other explanation. It's corruption. As simple as it is.
All right, so let's move ahead to 2027. Talks about 2027, that is. And the Guardian reports this morning that INEC seeks law to strip president of power to appoint RECs, that's the Resident Electoral Commissioners. What do you think this means?
Yes, I agree with INEC on this one. Because when you say by the way, INEC is a public institution. Now, when people apply for positions in public institutions, they apply. So why not make the position of REC, Resident Electoral Commissioner, to be a job up there that anybody who qualifies can apply? And screening will be done, applications will be received from Nigerians, screening will be done, interviews will be conducted, and INEC should do that process. It shouldn't be a situation where the president sits there, receives names from governors, right?
Yes.
Governors or some highly placed individuals nominate their own, and they are appointed. And if, for instance, someone is nominated from here, another person is nominated from Taraba State, the governor of Benue can easily link up with the governor of Taraba. Say, talk to your guy who is coming to Benue to conduct elections for me in 2027. And I will talk to my guy whom I have sent to INEC to go to your state. So you see, there will be that conspiracy.
Yeah.
So if the guy from INEC from Taraba is coming to Benue to do some favors for the governor here, then the guy from Benue who is going to Taraba can easily do some, can return the favors
Right.
to the governor of Taraba State because his own person is doing favors to your person here. So the person who nominated you also demands favors for the person you are working for there. So you see, that is how the network of corruption goes on, and that's why the electoral system is yet to be where we want it to be. So I agree with INEC on this one, that the appointment of state resident electoral commissioners of INEC should be thrown up for the best persons for it, and people should be allowed to apply to be made INEC commissioners, so that if we receive many applications, INEC will reduce that shortlist maybe up to 3, 4, or 5, and interview them and pick the best person for the job. It should be that simple. If you do that, you'll be getting competent Nigerians to be resident electoral commissioners. And these people should be people of integrity who will go to serve in the various states and remember that they are serving this country. They want the country to work. They want the best people to be elected as governors and state assembly members and so on, and national assembly members.
All right. Before we leave the Guardian newspaper this morning, we have JAMB, Peter Obi, BICA over early exam schedules. So the JAMB, the Joint Admissions Matriculation Board, that's JAMB, has responded to criticisms by former presidential candidate Peter Obi over the early resumption time of the UTME, that's the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. So Obi had in a post on his X handle on Sunday decried reports of candidates, mostly teenagers, being allegedly asked to travel to examination centers as early as 6:30 a.m. despite security concerns.
Yes, before he responds, I also need to add that I think yesterday, also we had a situation on the George Akume Way where a jambite was knocked down in the early hours by a hit-and-run vehicle. I think one of the journalists in the state took that up and saw his post on social media calling for citizens to fish out the person that did this, committed that crime. So this is one of the things we're talking about. And then the National Association of Nigerian Students had also, in a letter to the JAMB registrar, demanded that the time be shifted. So I'd like you to combine all of this background.
Yes, I agree completely with Governor Peter Obi, former governor of Anambra State and former 2023 presidential candidate of Labour Party on this, because the fact that we want to get the best candidates to go into our universities should not lead to the loss of lives. And if the exams are shifted to maybe 10 o'clock, I mean, if you are in any part of Makurdi, for instance, moving from, let's say, from breweries or even Gadi to high level, shouldn't take you 2 hours. But if the exams are put at 8 o'clock and the students are required to be in the exam centers at 7:30 or 7 o'clock, then it means they are leaving their houses very early. So I agree that the time should be looked into and shifted to, because by the way, the exams don't take that long. How long is it? 2 hours?
I think 2 hours.
2 hours at most. So if you put it at 10, 11 in the morning, it is expected that someone who is coming from maybe a Kwande local government, from Adipo, for instance, to come and write exams in Makurdi, should have come to spend the night in Makurdi, should have arrived Makurdi yesterday evening or so. He will not be leaving Adipo this morning to come to Makurdi. So the point of the person having to travel many distances will not be there. So you just shift it a little, make it maybe 10 o'clock, 10, 11. And within that time, all candidates will be seated, all applicants will be seated. And they wouldn't have to leave their homes by 5:30 or 6 a.m. to run into bad boys on the streets who will maybe collect their phones and the small change, the money for transportation which they are carrying. And you know, the girls are always the most hit when it comes to running into bad guys. Some of these people who do commercial motorcycling, not all of them. Some of them are into bad behavior, and some of them even are not real members of the motorcycle association.
True.
Some of them buy motorcycles for that purpose.
True.
Of going out in the mornings and running into vulnerable people like young girls and young boys and robbing them on the way. So JAMB should look into that suggestion by Peter Obi by moving the exam time to sometime later in the day.
All right, thank you. This wasn't the issue a few years ago. You know, when I did in 2015 or so, it was at UniAgric, and I arrived there as early as 6. But then the security situation, it was not as terrible as it is right now. So we need to be shifting as the time shifts with us, so that we
making the relevant changes.
Yes. All right, we head straight to the Vanguard newspaper now, and it comes with this banner headline: defection to APC. Oborevwori Okoa created political tsunami not seen before, and this is coming from the presidency with a double or triple rider. More governors will move. Oborevwori, our decision for good of Deltans, Okoa, and defection of high-profile politicians, governors widely exaggerated, has no electoral value. And this is coming from El-Rufai. And then to other stories in the Vanguard, both the nameplate WAEC, NECO will begin CBT exams by 2026, coming from federal government. We also have conclave starts May 7. Cardinals say new pope must tackle abuse. Osinachi, while court sentenced husband to death. In other stories, we have unlawful trial of Nnamdi Kanu and affront to rule of law, natural justice, IPOB. Local airports without permits face sanctions from 2026, coming from NCAA. And then, of course, there is a comic by that side. But when you pick up a copy of that paper, you would see more of those. All right, I'd like us to continue with the education story, so that once we are done with education, then we return to politics and then to other matters. So, continuing from education, WAEC NECO will begin CBT exams by 2026. And Chief, I want to ask you, what impact do you think this will leave on our educational system?
Well, maybe you need to explain that to me. I've been following this JAMB. What are they talking about? They want to come. I didn't quite.
No, they want to change their examinations from the normal paper biro, stuff to a computer-based test.
Have they not been? They have been. Okay, that's WAEC.
That's WAEC and NECO. Yes. JAMB is CBT.
So
yes.
Fine. Why not? It's a good one. It's a good one because, but again, that calls for some worry. Because our schools are not yet there.
Are we ready? That's the question.
Ready for digital examinations. Imagine going to a rural school in some of the local governments, and then you ask this. Some of them have not touched a computer before. Now you suddenly they have to sit behind or before a computer and take exams. I'm just imagining how that is going to be
possible.
I would suggest that we shouldn't rush this process yet. We should at least pilot centers, pilot schools should be encouraged in the states. State governments should encourage schools to have computer pools, establish computer centers, and let the students begin to romance with the computers. Let them begin to understand elementary language of the computer. Let them begin to work on the computers and be able to know that this key is this one is this. Before you move to computer-based test, that's CBT, right?
Right.
Now, if we rush that system now, you see, Nigerians are very good people. anytime you are hearing something like this, just know that someone somewhere is about to cash out. So that project will be huge. If you do it, someone will get the contract to supply computers for secondary schools. Whether those secondary schools are going to use the computers, it is not his business. And of course, they will even, some may even supply substandard systems. Now, the hate to make money from government projects is what drives some of these ideas. They don't care what happens to the society. Whether the society truly benefits from this system, the contractors do not care. So if it is the drive to make money, if it is the desire to make money that is pushing this process, I would suggest that let's start from the beginning, as some people say. Let state government fund secondary schools that are public, and private school owners should also be encouraged to build at least one computer hall and put systems there. Classes can be going in there to make practicals gradually. All the students in the secondary schools will understand and know how to use a computer. Then if we give like a year or two and this is implemented, we can begin to look at going to do full CBT computer-based test for WAEC and NECO. That I think that's where we should start.
Okay. And then trainings and retrainings, very important too, because there are teachers, trust me, there are teachers who don't know how to operate computers. And I mean this, I've seen that, many.
In fact, there are many bottlenecks to this process, if you ask me. And that's why I would just agree that we shouldn't rush into this. Let's find out what it takes to do this and see if we are ready in every area of this country, in every part of this country to do this.
We agreed to move over for small.
Small.
It don't matter, just liggy. All right. So, Shido, there's no time.
Yes.
So, let's go to sports.
Let's go to sports.
You mentioned this story
Yes.
of defections.
I know it's getting
Tsunami.
Why do you want to leave that story?
All right, so let's look at it.
It's a big story, headline story that's run in almost all the newspapers. So if we don't briefly comment about it.
Okay, so
Those
defection
is
to
a girl
APC.
of defections, all right?
Yeah.
Now, the APC is jubilating. And the opposition...
The presidency says it's a tsunami that has never been
But
seen.
should it be only about the tsunami? Should it only be concerned about people moving to
So what should it be
APC?
concerned?
Are we turning to a one-party state?
Okay.
That shouldn't be.
Okay.
We should be concerned about the pains of Nigerians more than defecting people into the APC. Because, well, of course, the PDP, I'm happy the PDP has spoken. That some of these governors who are leaving out of fear. I saw Elder Bode George speaking the other day. Some of these people are leaving out of fear, the fear of the unknown. Some of them are being probed. Some of them are doing things that... so I don't think it should be all about arm twisting. If you are arm twisting people to leave and join a one-party, Nigeria should become a one-party state, then there will be no democracy. Because that will no longer be... The beauty of democracy will no longer be there. And there will be no need for INEC. Because who will you be contesting with? So I think... the ruling party should brace for competition, should rather encourage competition so that they will test. 2027 elections will be a referendum on them, beginning from the president to state governors and local government chairmen. Of course, their elections don't come at the same time with the national elections, but for the president and the state governors, it will be a referendum. So if you do not do well, there is no second term for you. So the ruling party should not be afraid of elections. They should encourage opposition. That will even beautify their scorecard. If at the end there is a stiff competition and you emerge victorious, you can beat your chest and say, look, Nigerians willingly voted for me. So we should deepen this democracy and not twist some people to defect to the ruling party. That's my take on this, and I'm being patriotic about it. I mean no harm at all.
It's quite clear. All right, so For want of time, we will not be taking our sports stories this morning. But Shido, you may like to just read through.
Okay, so Punch Sports this morning. At all cost, Gala fans want club to retain Osimhen, no matter the price, as United ready to pay strikers release clause. We also have Remo players dedicate maiden MPFL title to fans. Bullying NWSL probes coach amid Ashola's post. And then Baka, Juventus, battle EPL trial for Lookman. Arsenal versus PSG. Ghana's Parisians renew rivalry in UCL semis. And there are more stories to check out in our paper.
Thank you very much, Shido. And that will be all for today's edition of Newspaper Headlines Review on Agate Television and Agate Radio. Thank you very much for always staying tuned. Shido Taka, thank you very much for your company.
It's been good to see.
Appreciations to analysts. Thank you very much, Satiri Akase, for always finding time to come on the program.
It's my pleasure always.
And my name is Fanen Kwanum, urging you to stay tuned to Agate Radio 95.5 Star FM. And remember to join us next week, Tuesday, for another interesting edition of Newspaper Headlines Review. Good morning.